Video is going to be about target shooting and the international something 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 organizations that you have around the world for doing it. This is considered a quote unquote classic target. Now I'm going to call it the upside down coffin target because that's what that looks like to me. The scoring in the A box, and this is essentially an analog for a human thoracic cavity, and C and D are expressed as major being A. The A box is always at 5. And depending on if you're doing minor or major scoring or shooting competition, the other numbers and letters apply. And it's given 3 zones, A, C, and D. There's a B zone, but that's if you also have a little 6-inch by 6-inch or whatever size it is target on top representing a human head. Now it's distorted like this because that's kind of how shooting works. If you're lining up a shot and you get it dead straight, barring wind deflecting it or you flinching or you having maybe a bad barrel, the bullets will do a drift up and down based on how much propellant is in the cartridge and how much weight the bullet really has and the tiny variations thereof at various distances. And if you get deflection, it will create more of an egg-shaped pattern out here. Some people even use one that's shaped like an egg and use basically ellipses or off-center ovals. The reason for doing it this way is to make it more definitive for competition shooting, and that's the basis of it. Now, this is a poorly done reproduction of the official methodology for creating the line diagram you use for drawing it. The reason it's this shape, and it is under copyright and or trademark, is because this is an easy way to draw it out by perforating the particle board or cardboard or whatever you're using. And the perforations make it to where, since they're tinier than most bullets could ever be, this makes it to where you can distinguish between them and a bullet impact. The other thing is it makes it where you can just punch this out of cardboard rapidly with a machine using a template. Now, they're made 18-inch by 26-inch or whatever it is that's a basic size for a human chest, all the way down to the tailbone, and the other one for the head is also about 6-inch by 6-inch. I did a really quick video about that explaining why shooting at larger ranges may be a dumb idea when you should start off being able to hit very, very good impacts on a very small target at short ranges like 10 feet. At 10 feet away, you really shouldn't be able to miss what is sometimes called the A box or the 5-point box. Now we're going to be looking at some other patterns here really quickly. This is the A box on top of the head and a B box being everywhere else. It's given a higher scoring than this area here that would be the thoracic cavity and internal organs and intestines and that sort of thing because it involves basically the mouth, chin, and lower half of the nose area and the throat. Now this implies obviously that this would be forgive the pun, triggering to some people. I'll be showing an anatomy diagram in a few minutes as well, but the idea again is this for practical shooting, and more importantly for self-defense. And this bothers some people, and sometimes these particular outlines and shapes are considered unacceptable, so the previous one you saw is used instead. It still has, if you can't tell from the diagram size, approximately the same characteristics because it just extends this up into here, effectively making the A box the whole thing, because if you're not aware of it, anywhere along here would have almost the same, if you excuse the expression, score. So there's that. Now we're using the anatomy diagram overlaid over it. Some people even buy these. Now I've altered this by including an E area. I have your A box, which is considered the area where it can do the most damage. B is where it can do more damage, but the reason the B is there, and they don't mention it, is because the mouth contains teeth and the jaw. And so does the area around the nose. So the A box is essentially overlaying the eyes and the upper part of the nostrils because this area is able to have less armor, your own skeleton. It should also be pointed out that there's a sternum right there. And many people have objected to this sort of thing. I want to point out the last one, C, D, E. E areas I've diagrammed out here by doing a few modifications are areas where you have an almost notorious lack of well, incapacitation or death. Incapacitation means the person is not willing to fight anymore, is trying to get to a doctor, isn't able to use their arms. The D area here should be concentrated around the shoulder and arm joints. They could be pointing a gun at you, so their arms don't have to be down here in the E area. So that's why I'm doing this diagram slightly different. This doesn't mean this is authoritative or anything. I'm just doing this because I'm modifying it by getting rid of this line and including, yes, down here into the spinal column. Now, another person, an anatomist, and a person who, several people who deal with people who are harmed by this also point out that this box ends right up here where the human skull is. And they brought up that it should be a different diagram. Now, this is the IDPA alternate on the right and IDPA target on the left. The one on the right incorporates this upside down egg shape and makes it much more overt that you're trying to avoid making it look like a human. It also makes it to where you can cut these angles very simply and simplify the process of production to where you waste less cardboard. So it's actually kind of trying to improve the amount of materials used, I suppose. Although some people have pointed out that it seems to be more wasteful. They use round targets in here. Now, I'm not going to try to improve on this or anything. And again, this is copyrighted by the IDPA and several other organizations. The point about this is that these points setting targets, if they're going to be based on human anatomy, I propose that it should be based on the actual trauma ward level information. Now, I'm going to warn everybody here, I am talking about the usage of firearms for the purpose of self-defense and what you should be attempting to accomplish if you want to really use a firearm, if you claim it to be for self-defense, for that purpose and train for it. And my opinion of this is that, to be very blunt, a 12-gauge shotgun aimed center of body mass, but slightly above center of body mass like they do the targets, is absolutely correct. And I also state that pistols should be fired a completely different way than is taught. Now, this is an opinion, it's an armchair opinion. I am not qualified to make this opinion. But then again, I'm not just stating my own opinion. I found that a bunch of people agree with me, including a bunch of people in law enforcement, military, and oddly enough, in the shooting organizations that want to get rid of these targets. So that's why I'm bringing this up. It should also be pointed out that the scoring system on the other targets is based on, if you're not aware of it, deciding that if you use a caliber with less muzzle flip, it gets a different scoring. It has nothing to do with knockdown power, although that's how it's listed. It has to do with whether or not it'll make it easier for you to shoot using a weaker cartridge. Some people think that this scoring thing here with a major and minor is about, how lethal a shot is. It isn't. It's about you get fewer points if it's an easier shot because you're using a cartridge that doesn't make it to where it's hard to fire it. That really is it. That's why 22 caliber short, almost no muzzle flip and no noise, is considered cheating if you're trying to do target shooting. It's easier to hit a really good target, really, really tight grouping, with really weak cartridges. This is the one I came up with by mixing a bunch of them together. No, this doesn't look good, but let me explain it. This is a result of several different anatomy pages. I emphasize here for disabling an attacker. Taking out the arm, both of them, is required, but taking out one arm generally disables them and they stop attacking. Hitting anywhere in here will cause disabling ability, but I don't bias it as being instant or quick. And this implies that if you hit these areas, the person will be disabled, but they can still fight back. But in this case, these two areas get a higher ranking if you're trying to stop a person without killing them. Yes, this is where that idea of winging somebody or just wounding them to stop them rather than kill them keeps coming up when people talk about the police department. I don't think it's a very useful argument. I think it's a waste of time, but I'm including it because it does have merit. Now we bring up the monster in the room. The rib cage here is lined with ribs, and it's going to act like armor. There's also a sternum here. And then the rest of the straight line all the way up and down would cause instant incapacitation and high likelihood of death. These other areas have not instant incapacitation, but high likelihood of death if not treated, but low likelihood of death if you go to a hospital, modern society mode. But this area here and this area here have a higher likelihood of causing a person not to be able to attack you. Let's go on. here is the line of where this is where most of the blood vessels are. I want to point out the, well, GIMP mask here is kind of scary, but mouth through teeth, nose, eye sockets, and the bones of the head keep it from being easily hit. And then finally, this is where you should consider the brain, even though this is very poorly done. So this is the really scary ghost mask version that I wanted to put out for Halloween, but I didn't get around to it because I had other things to worry about. But the scoring system that people complain about being too graphic could be easily changed by a person like me actually introducing something realism-based, number one. Number two, if you're a person who wants to train for self-defense, this would actually be your proper target. I'm not kidding about that. You can see the 3-ring and all the other rings here overlaid. You could probably figure out how to draw this. The point I'm making here is, on a practical level, even the Practical Shooting Association is being somewhat impractical. And to be very honest, it is extremely difficult to disable an attacker, so please stop complaining to the police. That's not something they're able to do, and it causes them to take too many chances with your life and mine. But there's your information. It's just this area. Mostly just right here and right here. And it's surprisingly difficult and easy, depending on how far away you're shooting and how much bullet drop it is, to actually stop an attacker. And that's if you have a clear shot at them and they're coming straight at you and they have their arms at their sides. Just thought I'd bring this up because of all the targets I was looking at. I was trying to figure out what the scoring system is, and I kind of went down this rabbit hole. And I want to point out that if you're curious about protecting yourself from being harmed, this is not a joke at all, but getting behind a telephone pole or a tree, yeah, it does actually help a great deal if you're curious. And body armor, if you don't have a face mask, means you're just asking for a headshot. That's why cops really don't like jokes about that. So what is this rambling video about? I went down a rabbit hole trying to find out why they call it major and minor impact points, why they call this spot here and this spot here the A box, and found a rabbit hole of scoring and attempting not to make it about it's competition shooting for using self-defense weapons for an implied or explicit target that's a human. And people aren't comfortable with that, and I think everybody needs to stop dilly-dallying around here. So anyway, that's really the entire video, and this is not a representative sample of how things should be done. So there's your standard A box. If you were curious about the A box, it just means the 2 locations on a target, if you were using a human, where you would have a guaranteed or virtually 100% kill. And the other ones aren't based on incapacitation. And if you want to base it on incapacitation, you end up with this is complicated. And by the way, yes, I made the heart symmetrical right and left because some people have a heart lobe going the other way. And if you're curious why this is the classic target, it's a way to hide the fact that it's a human body analogy here that you're doing and just using a different shaped target so that people don't feel like they're training to take out a human. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Yeah, this was going to be a Halloween video, but I didn't do it. And I kind of got lost down a very, very strange rabbit hole. And no, there is no one perfect target for training. And I'll say again, I've never been in a situation where having a firearm would have gotten me out of any trouble. It probably would have made it worse. And most of you, thankfully, are in the same bucket. And if any of you are curious about these things, I will leave links below in the description. You can buy these on Amazon. They don't even restrict them. And if any of you have any ideas, please answer, post your comments below. RFI, RFC, request for information and request for comment. If you wish to, you can contribute to this discussion. But as far as I'm concerned, I think a scoring system is a waste of time. I think that it doesn't do anybody any good. And I think self-defense shooting, if you want to learn about the subject, it gets less and less clear the more you learn. But that's my experience. That doesn't have to be yours. Good day.